Everything you thought you knew about early humans is wrong. For centuries, the story of our origins was a simple tale of primitive cave dwellers, but that narrative has been completely shattered. Groundbreaking archaeological discoveries have ripped up the old history books, revealing a past far more complex and innovative than we ever dreamed. This video will take you through 25 finds that changed everything, proving our ancestors were artists, explorers, and engineers with capabilities that defy our old assumptions. You will see a hidden history of human ingenuity that connects us all. We will uncover why a tiny human relative found on a remote island rewrites the family tree, and how the world's oldest temple complex suggests religion came before cities. What does it truly mean to be human when the evidence points to a past this surprising? For a long time, the story of human origins was not written in stone, but sketched on a nearly blank slate. The scientific world of the 19th and early 20th centuries was captivated by a simple, linear idea of progress. It was a vision that often placed Europe at the pinnacle of human development, a story of steady ascent from a brutish, ape-like creature to the pinnacle of modern man. This narrative was powerfully appealing, but it was built on a foundation of remarkably few fossils. Pioneers like Charles Darwin had laid the intellectual groundwork with his theory of evolution by natural selection, yet the tangible proof, the bones in the ground, were frustratingly scarce. Early archaeologists and anthropologists had to piece together our entire history from a handful of skull fragments and stone tools, often interpreting them through the lens of their own cultural biases. Their methods were painstaking, involving meticulous excavation with brushes and trowels, but the scope of the world they could explore was limited. This created a perfect storm for a scientific revolution. The old models were elegant but fragile, built more on assumption than evidence. They presented human evolution as a single, triumphant march, a ladder with one rung leading directly to the next. But what if the reality was not a ladder, but a tangled, branching bush? As one prominent archaeologist wisely noted, each new dig site is a potential paradigm shift, waiting to challenge our assumptions. The field was a powder keg, and all it needed was a single, unexpected discovery to ignite it. The stage was set for a series of finds that would not just add a new chapter to the history book, but would tear the old one to pieces and force us to write a new one from scratch. The first crack in that fragile old narrative appeared not with a bone, but with a footprint. In 1976, within the sun-baked clay of Tanzania's Olduvai Gorge, Mary Leakey and her team uncovered a moment frozen in volcanic ash. It was a trail of footprints left by two of our ancient relatives as they walked across a wet landscape over 3.6 million years ago. These were not the clumsy, shuffling impressions one might expect from a primitive ancestor. Instead, they revealed a purposeful, upright stride, a modern-looking gait captured in stunning detail. This was the first direct, tangible proof of bipedalism, the act of walking on two legs in such deep time. For the first time, we were not just inferring behavior from a fossilized femur, we were looking at the literal footsteps of our past. This single discovery shattered a key assumption. It proved that one of humanity's most defining traits, the ability to walk tall, did not evolve much later as part of a grand package with bigger brains. It came first, and that changed everything. Walking upright was a fundamental revolution. It freed the hands, allowing these early hominins to carry food, to gesture, to eventually shape the first stone tools. It changed how they saw the world, lifting their gaze from the ground to the horizon. The very footprints themselves tell a subtle story. One individual was larger, the other smaller, their strides locked together in time. Were they a parent and child, two companions traveling together? This simple path hints at social bonds, at a shared journey across an ancient plain. The Olduvai Gorge footprints forced a complete re-evaluation of our timeline, proving our ancestors were walking a path toward humanity far earlier and with far more grace than anyone had dared to believe. Yet while the footprints revealed the body in motion, it was another discovery that would illuminate the mind. Deep within a French hillside in 1940, 4 teenage boys and their dogs stumbled into a hidden cavern, their flickering lamplight illuminating a spectacle unseen for 17,000 years. The walls of the Lascaux cave exploded with life, a swirling menagerie of aurochs, horses, and stags painted in vibrant reds, blacks, and yellows. This was not a collection of simple sketches or primitive graffiti. It was a masterwork, a Sistine Chapel of the Paleolithic, demonstrating a breathtaking command of line, movement, and perspective. The artists had even used the natural contours of the rock to give their animals a startling three-dimensional presence, as if they were emerging from the stone itself. But what was the purpose of this hidden gallery? These were not mere decorations. Most experts believe the cave served as a sacred space, a ritual chamber where early humans performed ceremonies to connect with the spirit of the animals they hunted. It was an act of sympathetic magic, perhaps, a way to ensure a successful hunt or to honor the creatures that gave them life. This single site shattered the long-held assumption that early humans were solely preoccupied with survival. Here was irrefutable proof of a rich symbolic culture, of abstract thought, and a deep spiritual connection to the world. The artists of Lascaux were not just painting what they saw, they were capturing what they felt and what they believed. They possessed a concept of beauty, a need to create meaning, and the sophisticated cognitive ability to translate their inner world onto a stone canvas. This was the undeniable birth of human creativity, a profound window into the minds of our ancestors that proves beauty and meaning were woven into the very fabric of our existence long before the first cities were ever built. But what did the bodies of these long-distance walkers actually look like? The answer arrived with stunning clarity from the hot, wind-swept shores of Lake Turkana in Kenya. In 1984, the nearly complete skeleton of a young boy was unearthed, a Homo erectus who had died 1.6 million years ago. He was so remarkably intact that scientists nicknamed him Turkana Boy. This was not just another fragment of bone, it was a window into a life, offering an unprecedented, full-body portrait of one of our most successful ancestors. His frame was tall and slender, with limb proportions that look almost modern. His long legs and narrow hips were clearly built for efficiency, designed to cover vast distances with a steady, ground-eating stride. This was a body adapted for endurance, running and walking, a key survival strategy for a species that lived by hunting and gathering across sprawling, open landscapes. He was a marathoner in a world without maps. The analysis of his teeth and bones revealed something even more profound about his life. The patterns of growth showed that Turkana Boy experienced a childhood. His development was slow and extended, much like our own, requiring years of care and protection from his family group. This shattered the old idea that all early humans matured rapidly like chimpanzees. Instead, it proved that the long, vulnerable period of childhood that allows for complex learning and cultural transmission is a deeply ancient trait. This single fossil became a cornerstone for understanding one of the greatest adventures in human history, the first great migration out of Africa. Turkana Boy and his kind were not just surviving, they were exploring. Their resilient, versatile bodies were the vehicles that carried humanity across continents, proving that the physiological blueprint for a global species was in place far earlier than anyone had ever dreamed. Yet for all the success of Homo erectus, the human story was never just one line marching forward. A startling discovery on a remote Indonesian island proved that our family tree was not a simple trunk, but a dense, tangled bush with branches we never knew existed. In 2003, deep inside the Liangbua cave on the island of Flores, archaeologists uncovered a skeleton that defied every expectation. It was tiny, just over a meter tall, with a brain the size of a grapefruit. This was not a child, but a fully grown adult from a species we never knew existed, nicknamed the Hobbit or Homo floresiensis. The most shocking part, this small-brained, diminutive hominin was not from some deep, distant past. The bones were dated to just 18,000 years ago, a time when our own species, Homo sapiens, had already spread across the globe. For a moment in deep time, we were not alone. The world was shared with another kind of human. This single find shattered the core assumption that human evolution was a single, linear path culminating in us. Here was clear proof of a completely different branch on the human tree, one that had evolved in isolation on its island home. Scientists believe the hobbits are likely descendants of a population of Homo erectus who reached Flores long ago. Over hundreds of thousands of years, cut off from the mainland, they underwent a remarkable evolutionary process known as island dwarfism. On islands with limited resources and few predators, large animals often evolve to become smaller, a survival strategy that requires less food. The hobbits were a human version of this phenomenon, becoming perfectly adapted to their unique environment. Their existence forces a profound question: what does it truly mean to be human? The hobbit had a very small brain, yet evidence from the cave suggests they made sophisticated stone tools, hunted miniature elephants called stegodons, and may have used fire. This directly challenges the old, simplistic idea that brain size alone dictates intelligence and capability. How could a species with such a small brain accomplish so much? The answer seems to lie in the brain's internal organization, its wiring rather than its sheer volume. The discovery of Homo floresiensis reveals a prehistoric world that was far stranger and more diverse than we ever imagined. A world where different kinds of humans, each uniquely adapted, walked the earth at the same time. But if the hobbits reveal a world of strange human diversity, what about the origins of our own modern mind? A quiet revolution was brewing not on an island, but within a seaside cave in South Africa. At Blombos cave, archaeologists unearthed a collection of seemingly ordinary stones. But these were not just stones, they were pieces of red ochre, a kind of iron-rich clay, carefully engraved with a series of deliberate geometric patterns. These were not random scratches, they were cross-hatch designs, a series of intersecting lines forming a complex, repeating motif, and they were astonishingly old, dated to 75,000 years ago. This was a full 40,000 years older than the magnificent paintings of Lascaux. This simple piece of ochre carried a monumental message. It was one of the oldest known examples of abstract art ever discovered, and it came not from Europe, but from the very cradle of humanity in Africa. The implications were staggering. For decades, a theory called the creative explosion had suggested that modern human behavior, things like art and complex language, emerged relatively recently, around 40,000 years ago, almost like a switch being flipped in the human brain. The Blombos engravings shattered that idea completely. Here was undeniable proof that the capacity for symbolic thought, the ability to use a design to represent an idea, a group, or a belief, was not a late addition. It was a fundamental part of the Homo sapiens toolkit from a much deeper past. Think about what it takes to make such a mark. the artist had to conceive of a pattern that did not exist in the natural world. They had to hold that abstract design in their mind. Then, with a steady hand, they had to translate that mental template onto a hard surface, executing the lines with precision and intent. This act suggests a mind capable of complex communication, of sharing ideas and traditions across generations. The pattern itself could have been a signature, a clan symbol, or a part of a ritual. It was a tiny, portable piece of identity, a signal of a shared culture. This discovery repositioned the entire narrative of human innovation. The great cultural flowering in Europe was not the beginning of the modern mind. It was simply one spectacular bloom on a branch that had been growing and developing in Africa for tens of thousands of years. The seeds of art, language, and everything that makes us who we are were sown in that cave long before the first human ever set foot on another continent. While the artists of Blombos were engraving symbols in Africa, another kind of human was performing acts of profound meaning half a world away. High in the rugged Zagros mountains of Iraq, the soil of Shanidar cave held a secret that would forever change the way we see our most famous evolutionary cousins, the Neanderthals. Here, archaeologists uncovered the skeletons of several Neanderthals, but these were not just bones scattered by time. One individual, known as Shanidar IV, was found resting in a seemingly intentional grave, his body surrounded by clumps of ancient pollen. This was not a random accident. The pollen came from brightly colored medicinal flowers like yarrow and cornflower, plants that do not grow naturally in the dark depths of a cave. The inescapable conclusion was that someone had placed a bouquet of flowers upon his body tens of thousands of years ago. This single, poignant act shattered the long-standing caricature of the Neanderthal as a grunting, stoop-shouldered brute. It hinted at something far more complex, a funerary ritual. The careful placement of the body, the deliberate offering of flowers, it all suggests a deep, emotional response to death. It points to a mind capable of contemplating loss, of honoring a life, and perhaps even of pondering what comes after. This was not merely disposal, it was a ceremony. It implies a shared belief system, a cultural tradition passed down through generations that gave meaning to the mystery of death. As one researcher intimately involved with the discovery reflected, Shanidar shows us a different Neanderthal, one capable of empathy and symbolic behavior. This empathy is further etched into the bones themselves. Another skeleton from the cave, Shanidar I, tells a story of a hard life. He had suffered a crushing blow to his head, blinding him in one eye. His right arm was withered and amputated below the elbow, and he walked with a pronounced limp. Yet the evidence of healed injuries proves he did not die from these catastrophic wounds. He lived for years, perhaps decades, after becoming severely disabled. In the harsh world of the Ice Age, survival was a collective effort. Shanidar I could not have hunted or easily defended himself. His survival meant his community cared for him. They provided him with food, protection, and shelter, showing a deep-seated compassion for a member who could no longer contribute in a direct physical way. This reveals a society built on strong social bonds, on a sense of obligation and care that extended beyond simple utility. The discoveries at Shanidar cave force a dramatic reassessment. If Neanderthals buried their dead with ritual, cared for their weak, and possessed the capacity for empathy and symbolic thought, what truly separates us from them? The line between Neanderthal and modern human becomes incredibly blurred, suggesting their inner lives, their emotional and cognitive worlds, were far richer and more familiar than we ever credited. They were not primitive failures, but another kind of human, navigating the same profound challenges of life, death, and community. But if Neanderthal burials reveal the roots of ritual, what happens when that impulse for the sacred scales up to an almost unimaginable degree? In the sun-scorched hills of southeastern Turkey, a simple mound known as Göbekli Tepe hid a secret that would overturn the very foundation of human history. When archaeologists began to dig, they did not find a simple campsite or a village. They uncovered a temple, a vast complex of massive stone pillars, each weighing many tons, arranged into great, purposeful circles. The sheer scale was breathtaking, but the date was utterly world-shattering. This monumental architecture was built over 11,000 years ago, a staggering 6,000 years before Stonehenge was even a concept. And the people who built it were not farmers living in a bustling town. They were hunter-gatherers. This single fact rips up the textbook narrative of the Neolithic Revolution. For over a century, the accepted story was simple and logical. Humans first learned to farm, to domesticate plants and animals. This agriculture produced a food surplus, which allowed people to settle down in permanent villages. This settled life, in turn, led to specialization, social hierarchy, and the free time necessary to develop complex religion and build monumental structures. It was a story of economics first, spirituality later. Göbekli Tepe turns that sequence completely on its head. Here, the temple came before the farm. The city came before the city. This suggests that it was a shared belief system, a powerful, unifying religion that first brought people together on a massive scale. The construction of Göbekli Tepe would have required the cooperation of hundreds, perhaps thousands of people. They needed to quarry enormous limestone pillars from local quarries, drag them for hundreds of meters, and erect them with astonishing precision, all without the wheel, without metal tools, and without domesticated animals to provide brute force. This was a project that demanded sophisticated organization, a chain of command, and a powerful, shared motivation. That motivation appears etched into the very stones themselves. The pillars are not blank monoliths. They are masterpieces of prehistoric art, covered in finely carved reliefs of dangerous and powerful animals, scorpions, foxes, vultures, and lions. These were not the docile, manageable creatures that would later be domesticated. They were symbols of a wild, spiritual world, perhaps totems of different clans or representations of gods and spirits. The carvings are a form of symbolic communication, a visual language that everyone who gathered there could understand, binding them together in a common identity and a common purpose. So why would nomadic hunter-gatherers invest such colossal effort into a single location? The answer may lie in what the site provided, a central place for scattered bands to meet, to exchange information, to find marriage partners, and to reaffirm their shared beliefs through powerful rituals. This regular, large-scale gathering may have itself created the need for agriculture. Feeding thousands of workers and pilgrims required a reliable food source, potentially spurring the first cultivation of wild grains and the management of wild sheep found in the surrounding hills. In this new light, civilization did not emerge from a practical need for food security. It was born from a spiritual need for meaning and community, a desire to build something greater than themselves. Göbekli Tepe stands as a silent, monumental challenge to our materialist view of history, proving that the human drive to connect with the sacred may have been the true catalyst that launched us on the path to the modern world. The world revealed by Göbekli Tepe was already complex, but the full picture of our past was about to become even more crowded. A single, tiny fragment of bone discovered in the remote Denisova cave in Siberia would rewrite the human story in a way no one could have predicted. This was not a skull or a skeleton, just a piece of a finger bone so small it seemed almost insignificant. Yet locked within its genetic code was the evidence of an entirely new kind of human, a population science now calls the Denisovans. Advanced DNA sequencing technology, which did not even exist when many earlier fossils were found, allowed researchers to extract and read the ancient genome from this minute sample. The results sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The Denisovan individual was a close cousin to the Neanderthals, but genetically distinct, representing a separate branch on the human family tree that had evolved in Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. The most profound revelation, however, was not just that they existed, but what they did. The genetic data showed clear evidence that Denisovans had interbred with both Neanderthals and with the ancestors of modern humans as they migrated out of Africa. This was not a simple family tree with separate, diverging branches. It was a tangled, interwoven web of relationships. The legacy of these ancient encounters is still alive within us today. Many people of Asian and Oceanian descent carry small but significant amounts of Denisovan DNA, a genetic gift that may have helped their ancestors adapt to new environments, such as high altitudes. As one of the geneticists behind the discovery noted, Denisovans remind us that our past is a mosaic of encounters and exchanges. This single bone fragment revolutionized the field of paleogenetics, proving that the tools of molecular biology could uncover hidden human lineages invisible to the traditional fossil record. It demonstrated that hybridization was not a rare exception in human evolution, but a common and crucial feature. Our species did not simply replace others in a lonely march of progress. We met, we mingled, and we absorbed pieces of their genetic heritage, making humanity today a rich tapestry woven from many different threads. Deep within a mountain in northern Spain, a vertical shaft descends into absolute darkness. This is the Sima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. For decades, archaeologists have been carefully extracting a macabre treasure from its muddy floor, the remains of at least 28 individuals. These are not Homo sapiens, but a population of early Neanderthals or their direct ancestors, and they are over 400,000 years old. This is not a scene of a massacre or a natural disaster. There are no signs of carnivore teeth marks, no evidence they were dragged there by predators. The only logical conclusion is both simple and revolutionary. These bodies were placed there deliberately, carried down into that difficult-to-reach chasm, and left there by their own kind. This single site represents the oldest known intentional disposal of the dead in the entire human fossil record. It is a funerary act that predates the flower burials of Shanidar by hundreds of thousands of years. What does this tell us about the minds of these pre-Neanderthals? Throwing a body into a ravine to avoid attracting scavengers is one thing, a practical, hygienic act, but the Sima de los Huesos suggests something more. The repeated use of the same specific, hidden, and difficult-to-access location implies a tradition. It points to a shared behavior, a ritualized practice passed down through generations. This was not a one-off event, it was a custom. The act of bringing a deceased companion to this particular pit over and over again hints at a concept of an appropriate place for the dead. It suggests the emergence of a group identity that extended beyond the living, a community that felt a collective responsibility for its members even after death. The sheer number of individuals found together, men, women, and young adults, indicates an entire social group, a band that lived and died together across many seasons. This pushes the origins of complex social bonds and symbolic thought incredibly far back in time, long before our own species ever walked the earth. It forces us to ask, when did the concept of an afterlife begin? While we cannot know if these early humans had a developed belief in a spirit world, the deliberate nature of the act itself implies a respect for the deceased that transcends the purely practical. It shows a mind capable of contemplating the mystery of death, of feeling loss, and of marking that transition with a consistent, meaningful action. The silent darkness of the pit of bones speaks volumes, telling a story of empathy, tradition, and a nascent spirituality that connects us to our most ancient cousins in a profoundly human way. The search for our own specific origin story led scientists to the hot, dusty expanses of Ethiopia's Afar region. There, they unearthed 3 skulls that would become the oldest known portraits of our own kind, Homo sapiens. Dated to 160,000 years ago, these are the Herto skulls. They are unmistakably modern in their overall shape, with a high, rounded brain case that is the hallmark of our species. Yet they also possess thicker brow ridges and more robust features than people today, a powerful blend of the familiar and the archaic. This single discovery provided the clearest fossil evidence yet for the out-of-Africa theory, the idea that our species evolved on that continent and only later dispersed to every corner of the world. The Herto people were not recent migrants. They were the source population, living and dying in the very heartland of humanity, long before any human had seen the snows of Europe or the jungles of Asia. Their robust features delivered another crucial insight. Human evolution was not a simple, polished march toward a single, perfect form. It was a messy, experimental process with a great deal of variation. The Herto individuals show that even within our own species, there was a wide range of physical diversity, a reality that challenges any simplistic notion of a linear path from primitive to modern. Their discovery forced a profound and difficult question. If these were anatomically modern humans, did they think like us? Did they have the same capacity for innovation, language, and complex culture that would later allow our species to conquer the globe? The skulls themselves are silent on this matter, but they became a crucial reference point, a fixed moment in time that pushed archaeologists to look harder for the behavioral evidence that must have accompanied this physical modernity. What technological or social breakthroughs occurred around this period that set the stage for our ultimate global dominance? The Herto skulls are more than just ancient bones. They are a starting pistol, marking the moment our species, in its fully modern physical form, stepped onto the stage of history, ready to begin its incredible journey. The search for humanity's cradle was once a fiercely guarded European affair, but one determined doctor would shatter that continental bias with a single, daring expedition. In the 1890s, a Dutch anatomist named Eugene Dubois became obsessed with a radical idea that the missing link between apes and humans would be found not in Europe, but in the tropics of Southeast Asia. He secured a post as an army surgeon in the Dutch East Indies, now Indonesia, and for years he tirelessly excavated the banks of the Solo River on the island of Java. His persistence was rewarded with a skullcap and a femur that defied all classification. He named his discovery Pithecanthropus erectus, the upright ape man. We know it today as Homo erectus, and it was the first fossil proof that human ancestors had walked the earth outside of Africa. This was a revelation that sent shockwaves through the scientific establishment. Java man was dated to over 1 million years ago, a staggering figure at the time. The brain was significantly larger than any known ape, and the thigh bone was clearly built for a creature that walked upright with a modern, efficient gait. Here was a being with one foot in the ancient past and the other striding confidently toward the human future. Dubois had not just found a fossil, he had found a passport to a global past. This single discovery fundamentally rewrote the map of human origins. It demolished the Eurocentric model that placed humanity's dawn squarely in Europe, proving instead that our story was a planetary epic from its very beginnings. Java man was not a primitive local curiosity, but a sophisticated explorer. The stone tools associated with this species were not crude bashes of rock. They were carefully crafted hand axes and cleavers, tools that required a mental template and a skilled hand to produce. This technological kit, known as the Acheulean toolkit, was a revolutionary invention, a multi-purpose tool that could butcher meat, process plants, and shape wood. It was the Swiss Army knife of the Paleolithic, a testament to a mind capable of foresight and complex problem-solving. With this advanced technology and a body built for endurance, Homo erectus became the first hominin to truly conquer the world. From the sweltering jungles of Java, they spread north into the temperate zones of China and west across the vast landscapes of Europe, adapting to an incredible range of environments. How did a species with such an ancient brain manage such a monumental feat of exploration and survival? Their success lay in their resilience and their cultural flexibility. They were not locked into a single way of life, but could innovate and adapt their tools and strategies to hunt different prey, gather new plants, and survive in unfamiliar climates. The discovery of Java man opened a century of research into this incredible species, forever establishing Homo erectus as the original global citizen, a pioneer who set the stage for every human migration that would follow. Far to the north, where the Ice Age still held the land in its grip, another discovery revealed a society already grappling with the weight of status and ceremony. At a site called Sungir, near the modern city of Vladimir in Russia, archaeologists uncovered a burial ground from around 30,000 years ago. It held the remains of two children, a boy and a girl, laid to rest head to head, and a middle-aged man buried a short distance away. But it was not the bones that told the most compelling story. It was what was buried with them. The bodies were absolutely covered in wealth. They were adorned with thousands of meticulously crafted ivory beads, each one requiring hours of labor to drill and polish from mammoth tusks. The children wore beaded caps and belts, their clothes once shimmering with this extravagant display. Alongside them were long spears made of straightened mammoth ivory, a material incredibly difficult to work, and carved animal figurines. The sheer number of beads is staggering, with one estimate suggesting a single outfit required over 10,000 hours of work to create. This was not a simple, practical burial. This was a statement. The time and resources poured into these graves reveal a society that was far from the simple, egalitarian band of hunter-gatherers we often picture. This level of investment implies specialization. Someone was making these beads full-time. Someone else was carving the ivory spears. This points to a community with distinct social roles, where certain individuals, perhaps a chief or a shaman, held enough authority to command such labor. The most profound implication, however, lies with the children. They were buried with even more grave goods than the adult man. In a society focused purely on survival, the death of a child, while tragic, would not warrant such a colossal expenditure of community wealth. Unless, that is, their status was not earned but inherited. Their lavish burial suggests they were born into importance, that their family held a position of power that was passed down through bloodlines. This is one of the earliest clear indicators of social stratification, a hierarchy where privilege was inherited, not achieved. As one archaeologist intimately involved with the site reflected, Sungir speaks of symbolism, ritual, and social complexity on a scale we hadn't anticipated for this period. The care taken here also speaks to deep emotional bonds and a complex belief system. To invest so much in a burial is to believe that these objects, this status, matters in whatever comes next. It hints at a well-developed concept of an afterlife, a world beyond our own where the deceased would need their spears, their finery, and their social rank. The Sungir burials shatter the romantic notion of a prehistoric world where everyone was equal. They show us that the human drives for social distinction, for ritual, and for expressing power through wealth are ancient, deeply rooted forces that were already shaping our societies at the very edge of the ice. The lavish burials at Sungir revealed a world already obsessed with status, but the true origin of that human story lay far to the south, waiting in a box of fossils. In 1924, a quarry worker in Taung, South Africa, handed a small, rock-encrusted skull to a young anatomist named Raymond Dart. It was not a grand discovery from a planned expedition, but a chance find that would ignite one of the fiercest scientific battles of the century. This was the Taung child, the skull of a young Australopithecus africanus, and it was about to turn the entire world of paleoanthropology upside down. When Dart carefully freed the fossil from its stony cradle, he saw a mix of features that defied easy categorization. The child's milk teeth were surprisingly human-like, not the large, pointed fangs of an ape. But the most telling clue was at the base of the skull, the foramen magnum, the hole where the spinal cord connects to the brain. In a quadruped like a chimpanzee, this hole is positioned toward the back of the skull because the head projects forward. In the Taung child, the hole was set directly beneath the skull, a clear and powerful indicator that this individual held its head upright and therefore walked on two legs. Yet the brain was small, no larger than that of a young chimpanzee. This combination was the key. It proved that walking upright, that fundamental human trait, had evolved long before our brains expanded to their modern size. The body walked like a human long before the mind, as we know it, had fully arrived. Dart immediately recognized the significance, proclaiming the Taung child as a missing link, a pivotal figure in the human lineage. The scientific establishment, however, was outraged. Their focus was firmly fixed on Asia and Europe, convinced that the Piltdown man, a later exposed forgery from England, was the true ancestor. They dismissed Dart's find as merely a juvenile ape, an irrelevant oddity from a continent they considered a backwater in human evolution. For years, Dart fought a lonely, frustrating battle, his evidence ignored by the very people who should have been his allies. But he was right, and the truth could not be suppressed forever. The Taung child was the first crack in the dam. It was the initial piece of evidence that shifted the gaze of science from the wrong continent to the right one. This single, small skull opened the floodgates, pointing the way to the rich fossil fields of Africa that would eventually yield the likes of Lucy and Turkana Boy. It established southern Africa as the undeniable cradle of humanity, a geographic correction of monumental importance. The story of the Taung child is not just one of anatomy, but of scientific courage, of a man who looked at a small, defiant skull and saw a truth that the world was not yet ready to accept. For decades, the story of the first Americans was a simple one, etched in stone. The narrative centered on a people known as the Clovis, big game hunters who crossed a land bridge from Siberia into Alaska around 13,000 years ago as the Ice Age glaciers retreated. Their distinctive, fluted spear points were found scattered across North America, and for a long time they were crowned the undisputed first pioneers of the continent. This was the Clovis first model, a tidy and dominant theory. But a single, waterlogged site in southern Chile would tear that story to pieces. The discovery of Monte Verde was not just another archaeological dig, it was a paradigm shift preserved in peat. This ancient settlement, nestled along a quiet creek, was carbon dated to over 14,000 years ago. That date was a thunderclap. It meant people were living at the southern tip of South America, a staggering 10,000 miles from the Bering Land Bridge, a full millennium before the Clovis culture even supposedly began. How was this possible? The answer lay in the unique conditions of the site. A waterlogged, peat bog environment created an anaerobic seal, a perfect time capsule that preserved materials that normally rot away to nothing. Archaeologists did not just find stone tools, they found the ghostly impressions of wooden huts, their log foundations still held together with fiber cordage. They uncovered a wishbone-shaped structure that seemed to be a communal meeting place. They found wooden mortars, digging sticks, and even the remains of medicinal plants. Most strikingly, they found chunks of mastodon meat still clinging to the animal's skin, and a single human footprint preserved in the clay. This was not a temporary camp. It was a well-established village, a community that knew how to use the resources of the forest and the stream. The implications were staggering. If people were in Chile 14,500 years ago, they had to have begun their journey across the Americas much, much earlier, perhaps even during the peak of the last ice age when immense ice sheets would have blocked any inland corridor. This forced scientists to seriously consider a radical alternative, that the first Americans did not walk south through an ice-free corridor at all. Instead, they may have traveled by boat, skirting the Pacific coastline in a maritime migration, hopping from one resource-rich refuge to another in a rapid journey that brought them to the farthest reaches of the hemisphere in just a few generations. This coastal route theory rewrote the entire map of human migration into the New World, transforming it from a slow, land-based trek to a daring, seafaring adventure. Monte did more than just push back a clock. It revealed the incredible adaptability and resilience of these first peoples. They were not just mammoth hunters, they were foragers, healers, and builders who thrived in a challenging, ever-changing world. Their presence at the bottom of the world so long ago stands as a permanent challenge to any simple story, proving that the human journey into the unknown was always faster, smarter, and more complex than we ever believed. The quiet hills of Denisovan, Georgia, held a secret that would force us to rethink the very definition of a species. Beneath the ruins of a medieval fortress, archaeologists unearthed not just one, but 5 complete hominin skulls, all dating back 1.8 million years. These were not the scattered fragments we were used to. They were a gallery, a family portrait from the very dawn of human migration out of Africa, and what a strange family it was. One skull had a massive, robust jaw and a heavy brow ridge, looking almost primitive. Another was far more gracile, with a smaller face and a brain case that seemed more advanced. They varied dramatically in size and features, as if they were 5 different characters from the same ancient story. Yet the incredible fact was this: they were all members of the same population, living and dying at the same site, likely all belonging to a single species, Homo erectus. This single collection of skulls delivered a devastating blow to a long-standing practice in paleoanthropology, the tendency to give a new scientific name to every fossil that looked slightly different. For decades, the fossil record seemed to suggest a bush with many finely divided branches, each new find christened as a unique species, but Denisovan presented a powerful alternative. It showed that a single species of early human could encompass a stunning amount of physical variation, just as a single species of dog today can range from a Chihuahua to a Great Dane. The differences between these 5 individuals were as great as the differences used to separate multiple so-called species found at sites across Africa and Asia. This forced a profound and humbling question. Had we been misreading human evolution all along, creating a complex family tree from what was actually just natural diversity within a few highly adaptable species? The implications for the first Great Migration are staggering. The Denisovan hominins represent the earliest indisputable evidence of humans outside of Africa. They were pioneers equipped with a simple but effective toolkit of stone choppers and flakes. Their existence proved that the first wave of migration was not led by a super-advanced, large-brained human, but by a variable and resilient population of Homo erectus. Their physical diversity was their greatest strength. It meant they were genetically flexible, capable of adapting to new environments, new foods, and new challenges without having to evolve into an entirely new species. A group with a wide range of sizes and robusticity could fill different ecological niches, with larger individuals perhaps specializing in big game while smaller, more agile members gathered plants or hunted smaller prey. This inherent variability was the key that unlocked the world. The Denisovan skulls whisper a crucial lesson about our own origins, that the human story has never been one of uniformity, but of a beautiful, messy, and powerful diversity that has been our greatest asset from the very beginning. The very idea of a single birthplace for humanity was a comforting one, a neat story of origins centered on a place like East Africa, but a cache of fossils from a Moroccan mine would scatter that story to the winds. At a site called Jebel Irhoud, researchers uncovered skulls and stone tools that were dated to an astonishing 300,000 years ago. This was a full 100,000 years older than any other accepted Homo sapiens fossil, a date that sent shockwaves through the field of paleoanthropology. The individuals found there presented a fascinating mosaic of features. Their faces were almost entirely modern, with delicate cheekbones and a chin that would not look out of place on a city street today. Yet their brain cases were longer and lower, more archaic in shape than our own rounded skulls. This was not a primitive ancestor, nor was it a fully modern human. It was a crucial piece of the puzzle, capturing our species in a moment of becoming. The discovery proved that the traits that make us human did not appear all at once in a single, sudden evolutionary leap. Instead, they emerged piecemeal, a patchwork of changes that slowly assembled the modern human form across the vast expanse of the African continent. The face evolved its modern shape first, perhaps linked to dietary changes or shifts in social behavior, while the brain case continued to change shape for another 100,000 years. This dismantled the classic idea of a single cradle of humankind, a specific East African Garden of Eden where our species was born. As one of the lead researchers on the project profoundly stated, there is no Garden of Eden for Homo sapiens, or if there is, it is all of Africa. The entire continent was the cradle. Different populations scattered from Morocco to South Africa were evolving in parallel, connected by ancient social networks that allowed genes and ideas to flow across vast distances. These groups were not isolated twigs on an evolutionary tree. They were part of a single, continent-wide web, each contributing something to the final recipe of what it means to be us. The Jebel Irhoud fossils force us to see our origins not as a linear path, but as a braided stream, with many tributaries feeding into the powerful river that would become modern humanity. This pushes our origin story back into a much deeper, more complex past, revealing a species that was experimenting with its own form for far longer than we ever knew. While some cultures were building megalithic temples, others were carving their beliefs from the very stone beneath their feet. Along the swirling, powerful currents of the Danube River in Serbia, a people known as the Lepenski Ver culture created a sacred landscape unlike any other. Their home was not a random campsite, but a meticulously planned settlement of trapezoidal houses, their foundations perfectly aligned with the river's flow, each building echoing the shape of the surrounding hills. This was more than an architecture of shelter, it was an architecture of meaning designed to harmonize with the natural world. Inside these unique structures, the inhabitants placed their most profound creations, stone sculptures that continue to captivate and mystify. These were not crude idols, but intricately carved boulders of river sandstone, smoothed and shaped into haunting visages that blend human and fish features. The faces are humanoid with wide, staring eyes and solemn, downturned mouths, but their bodies are often marked with gills or scales, or contorted into postures that evoke a swimming motion. They are the river spirits given form, a permanent testament to a world completely intertwined with the Danube. This was one of the first known traditions of monumental sculpture in all of Europe, a breathtaking artistic achievement that sprang from a society on the cusp of a great transformation. The people of Lepenski Ver were primarily hunter-gatherers, relying on the staggering bounty of the river, which provided up to half their diet in the form of massive sturgeon and catfish. Yet they were also beginning to settle down, building permanent, sophisticated homes with limestone plaster floors and central hearths that served as both a practical and a ritual focus. They domesticated dogs, perhaps the first in this part of Europe, for companionship and hunting aid. This unique combination of a foraging economy with a settled, artistically rich village life makes Lepenski Ver a crucial missing link in the human story. It shatters the old binary that saw nomadic life as simple and farming life as complex. Here was a society that found abundance in the wild, allowing them the stability to develop a complex spiritual culture without fully adopting agriculture. The creation of these sculptures points to a society with specialized roles. Not everyone was hunting or gathering all the time. Someone was the artist, spending days carving the sacred stones. Someone was the spiritual leader, interpreting the will of the river spirits. The community had to support these individuals, investing time and resources into their non-subsistence work. This level of organization hints at a social structure far more intricate than previously imagined for Mesolithic Europe. The sculptures themselves were likely oracles, mediators between the human world and the powerful, animating force of the Danube. They were placed at the focal points of the houses, perhaps to bring blessings upon the home, to ensure a good catch, or to protect the inhabitants from the river's dangerous power. This deep, symbolic relationship with their environment reveals a spiritual depth we rarely grant to so-called primitive cultures. Lepenski Ver offers a poignant glimpse into the moment when humanity was balancing on a threshold, still drawing life from the untamed wild, but beginning to root itself in place, building not just houses, but a lasting cultural identity centered on art, ritual, and a profound connection to the world around them. The frozen soil of Siberia holds secrets that rewrite the map of human history. Near the village of Malta, archaeologists uncovered the grave of a young boy who died 24,000 years ago. His body was adorned with a rich assortment of grave goods, including a carved ivory pendant and a necklace of beads and bird figurines. But the most profound discovery was not in the artifacts surrounding him. It was locked within his own bones. Advanced genetic sequencing revealed his genome, a blueprint that told a story of connections spanning half the globe. This ancient Siberian boy carried the genetic ancestry of both Western Europeans and the first peoples of the Americas. His DNA was the missing link, a key piece of evidence proving that the population that would eventually cross the Bering Land Bridge into the New World was not a single, isolated group. Instead, they were a complex mix of ancient North Eurasians, like the Malta boy, and East Asians who met and mingled in Siberia long before the Great Migration began. This genetic data painted a picture of a dynamic, interconnected world, where populations separated by thousands of miles were still linked by threads of ancestry. The boy's genome proved that the peopling of the Americas was the final act of a much older and more complicated story of movement and mixture across the ancient North. Alongside this pivotal burial, researchers found a collection of small, carved figures that have become icons of the Ice Age world, the Venus figurines. These statuettes carved from mammoth ivory depict women with exaggerated breasts, bellies, and hips, while their faces are often blank and their feet tapered to a point. For decades, their purpose has been debated. Were they fertility symbols, representations of goddesses, or self-portraits made by women? Their widespread discovery, from the Pyrenees in France all the way to this remote Siberian site, suggests something even more profound than a single, universal meaning. They represent a shared artistic language that spanned an entire continent. The stylistic similarities between a figurine found in Europe and one found at Malta are too striking to be a coincidence. This hints at a network of communication, a flow of cultural ideas and spiritual concepts across a landscape we once imagined as empty and fragmented by ice. How did these ideas travel? It was not a single culture marching in lockstep, but likely a slow, ripple effect of exchange between neighboring bands, passed along trade routes and through seasonal gatherings over countless generations. The Malta site beautifully weaves together these two threads of evidence, the genetic and the artistic. The boy's DNA shows us the movement of people, while the Venus figurines show us the movement of ideas. They are two sides of the same coin, proving that the prehistoric world was not a collection of isolated tribes, but a vast social network where both genes and culture were in constant, fluid exchange. This discovery collapses the distances of the ancient world, revealing a humanity already deeply connected long before the invention of writing or the wheel. Fire was the first technology that truly tamed the world. While the Dmanisi pioneers were spreading across Eurasia, another population of Homo erectus in East Asia was mastering a force that would change everything. The Zhaokudian cave system near Beijing, famously known as the home of Peking Man, is a site that still echoes with the ghosts of their ancient hearths. Excavations there revealed a staggering collection of fossils and stone tools, but the most profound evidence was found in the layers of ash and soot embedded in the cave floor, dating back over 500,000 years. These were not the remains of a single, accidental blaze. They were the accumulated residue of countless fires, built again and again in the same sheltered space. This was not just the use of fire, it was the control of it. Peking Man was not merely taking advantage of a lightning strike. They were keeping the flame alive, curating a spark into a sustained, life-altering resource. The presence of burned animal bones amidst the ash tells a clear story. This fire was used for cooking. This simple act, roasting meat and tubers, was a nutritional revolution. Cooking breaks down tough fibers and makes more calories available, fueling the development of larger brains and freeing up time that would have been spent on endless chewing. It also provided a central source of warmth, a magnetic force that pulled the group together. Can you picture the scene, the dark cave illuminated by a flickering hearth, shadows dancing on the walls as the group gathers, safe from predators, sharing food and perhaps the first glimmerings of stories? This social hearth became the first classroom, the first community center, fostering complex communication and strengthening the bonds that held the group together. This mastery of fire was the key that unlocked colder climates, allowing these early humans to survive harsh winters they never could have endured otherwise. Alongside the evidence of fire, the cave yielded thousands of quartz tools, showing a sophisticated understanding of local materials and manufacturing techniques. The Peking Man fossils themselves told a story of a successful, resilient population. Tragically, the original bones, a priceless treasure of human evolution, were lost in the chaos of World War II during an attempt to smuggle them to safety. All that remains today are meticulous casts and the continued work of new generations of archaeologists. Yet, even without the original fossils, the legacy of Zhaokudian is indelible. It cemented the role of fire as a transformative technology and proved that the innovative spirit of Homo erectus was a global phenomenon, burning brightly in Asia just as it did in Africa. Deep within the rising star cave system of South Africa, a chamber sealed for millennia held a secret that would challenge our most basic ideas about intelligence. Reaching it required a perilous descent through a crack so narrow that only the slimmest of researchers could squeeze through. What they found was not a single skeleton, but a trove of bones belonging to at least 15 individuals of a species never before seen, named Homo naledi. These hominins were a mosaic of ancient and modern, with curved fingers perfect for climbing and a brain only about a third the size of our own. Yet they walked upright with feet almost indistinguishable from ours. The real shock, however, came from their final resting place. The Dinaldi chamber was a place of deliberate placement, not a predator's lair or a flash flood deposit. How did these bodies, with no signs of catastrophic injury, end up in such a profoundly inaccessible space? The most logical and revolutionary conclusion is that other Homo naledi carried them there. This was an intentional act, a form of body disposal that hints at a profound awareness of death. For decades, we linked such complex mortuary behavior exclusively to large-brained species like Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. We assumed it required a sophisticated, symbolic mind capable of contemplating an afterlife or performing elaborate rituals. The discovery of Homo naledi, with its small, grapefruit-sized brain, shatters that assumption completely. How could a creature with such a modest brain manage such a thoughtful, logistically challenging act? It forces us to abandon the simple equation that brain size equals cognitive capability. Perhaps the wiring of the brain, its internal organization, is far more important than its sheer volume. The journey into the Dinaldi chamber was dark, difficult, and dangerous. To repeatedly navigate that passage while carrying the body of a deceased companion suggests a powerful social bond, a deep-seated impulse to treat the dead with care. This was not a one-off event, but a repeated practice for this group. It implies a shared tradition, a learned behavior passed down through generations. They may not have had the same symbolic language we do, but their actions speak loudly of a mind that felt loss, that recognized the significance of death, and that felt compelled to respond to it in a consistent, meaningful way. This single cave chamber expands the boundaries of what we consider possible for early hominins, proving that the roots of our humanity, including our reverence for the dead, run much deeper and are far more mysterious than we ever knew. But to truly navigate a world connected by rivers and ideas, you need a vessel. Tucked away in a Dutch museum lies a simple, hollowed-out log known as the Pes canoe. It looks unassuming, almost crude, but this single artifact is the oldest known boat in the world, carbon dated to around 10,000 years ago. It was not built by farmers or city dwellers, but by Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, people we often picture as bound to the land. This dugout canoe, painstakingly carved from a single pine tree, is a testament to a different reality. It is a passport to a world of water. With this simple craft, early humans transformed rivers from barriers into highways. They could now travel farther and faster than ever before on foot, carrying heavy loads of food, tools, or trade goods. A journey that might have taken days to walk could be accomplished in a matter of hours with a strong current. This was a revolution in mobility. The canoe opened up entire new ecosystems for exploitation. People could paddle to the center of a lake to fish in deep waters, reach remote islands rich in bird eggs, or access stands of rare materials on distant shores. It allowed for the transport of large game, like a red deer carcass, which would have been incredibly difficult to drag back to a camp overland. but the implications run even deeper than simple logistics. The pest canoe is hard evidence of sophisticated cognitive skills. Its creators had to understand buoyancy and stability. They had to select the right tree, and then, using only stone tools, they had to carefully hollow it out, maintaining an even thickness to prevent the vessel from cracking or becoming unstable in the water. This was not a spontaneous invention, it was applied physics. This maritime technology fundamentally changed the social landscape. Rivers became the original social networks, connecting communities that were once isolated. Ideas, stylistic trends like the forms of stone tools, and even genes could now flow with the current, creating a cultural exchange that spanned vast distances. The world of the Mesolithic was not a collection of isolated tribes, but a web of connections linked by these silent, graceful journeys on the water. The pest canoe symbolizes a pivotal leap in human ingenuity, proving that our ancestors were not just walking the earth, but mastering its waters, setting the stage for the epic sea crossings that would eventually populate the most remote corners of our planet. The silent darkness of a German cave held a secret that would redefine the birth of imagination. Among broken stone tools and animal bones, archaeologists uncovered hundreds of fragments of mammoth ivory, painstakingly carved and then forgotten for 40,000 years. When meticulously reassembled, these pieces revealed a figure that stands at the crossroads of human and beast, the Lion Man of Hohlenstein-Stadel. This is not a simple animal figure or a human form. It is a hybrid, a being with the upright posture of a human but the head and features of a cave lion, one of the most powerful and dangerous predators of the Ice Age world. Its creation was an act of staggering dedication. To carve such a complex figure from a material as hard as mammoth ivory, using only stone tools, would have required weeks, perhaps even months of labor. This was not a casual pastime. It was a profound investment of time and skill by a master artisan, someone whose community supported them while they worked on this non-utilitarian object. What concept was so important that it demanded such a monumental effort to bring into physical form? The Lion Man almost certainly represents a being from mythology, a powerful spirit that inhabited the stories and beliefs of the Aurignacian people. It could be a depiction of a shaman in a state of transformation, a person who, through ritual, could take on the attributes of the lion to gain its strength, courage, or hunting prowess. This single artifact is a window into a world of abstract thought that we can barely grasp. It proves that these early humans were not just telling simple stories about their daily hunts. They were constructing complex narratives about the nature of existence, exploring the boundaries between the human world and the animal world, and giving form to supernatural forces. The act of carving this figure was an act of storytelling in solid ivory. It required the artist to hold a mental image of a creature that does not exist in reality, a pure concept, and then translate that inner vision into a tangible object that others in their group would recognize and understand. This implies a shared symbolic language, a common set of beliefs that gave the Lion Man its power and meaning. The discovery pushes the origins of complex myth-making and artistic expression deep into the Paleolithic era, proving that the human drive to explore identity, power, and the supernatural is an ancient, fundamental part of who we are. A human life from 5,300 years ago was suddenly pulled into the present. In 1991, two German hikers traversing the high passes of the Italian Alps spotted a brown, leathery shape melting out of the ice. They had stumbled upon Ötzi the Iceman, a man from the Copper Age, so perfectly preserved by the glacial deep freeze that he was not a skeleton, but a complete mummy, complete with his skin, his clothing, and all his possessions. This was not an archaeological reconstruction, it was a person. he carried a sophisticated toolkit that spoke of a skilled and resourceful life. His most prized possession was a beautifully crafted axe with a copper blade, its handle of yew wood meticulously shaped to fit his grip. This was a symbol of status and a vital survival tool. He also carried a bow taller than he was, a quiver of arrows with flint tips, and a small repair kit. Perhaps most telling was a piece of birch fungus threaded onto a leather strap, a known natural antibiotic that he likely used to treat intestinal parasites revealed by later analysis. His very body became a historical document. The contents of his stomach provided a final meal, eaten hours before his death, of wild goat meat, grains, and roots. His clothing was a masterclass in survival, stitched together from the hides of bear, deer, and goat, each material chosen for its specific properties like warmth or waterproofing. Dozens of simple tattoos, lines, and crosses etched into his skin over aching joints suggest an early form of therapeutic medicine, perhaps acupuncture to relieve pain. This incredibly personal snapshot was capped by a final, violent act. A deep arrowhead was lodged in his shoulder, severing a major artery. He also had a severe head wound and defensive cuts on his hands. Ötzi did not die in an accident, he was murdered. This single individual transforms our understanding of the past from an abstract timeline into a tangible human drama. He was not a primitive caveman, but a man with advanced technology, medical knowledge, and a complex understanding of his environment. He was someone with aches and pains, who carried medicine, who relied on a well-made axe, and who ultimately fell victim to a conflict that feels chillingly modern. Ötzi grounds the vast sweep of prehistory in the poignant, specific story of one man's life, his skills, his suffering, and his sudden, violent end on a mountain pass. While Ötzi's gear revealed a single man's tools, an entire arsenal from a much deeper past was waiting in the mud of a German coal mine. The Schöningen Spears are not mere pointed sticks, they are masterpieces of Paleolithic engineering. 8 wooden throwing spears, each over 2 meters long, were preserved for 300,000 years in the wet, anoxic soil of an ancient lakeshore. They were crafted by Homo heidelbergensis, the likely common ancestor of both Neanderthals and our own species, and their design is anything but primitive. Each spear is carved from the trunk of a spruce tree, with the tip expertly fashioned from the denser, harder heartwood. The weight is perfectly distributed, with the center of gravity situated in the front third of the shaft, a precise balance that makes them effective aerodynamic projectiles. These were not thrusting spears for close combat. They were carefully balanced javelins, designed to be thrown with lethal force and accuracy from a distance. This single fact rewrites the entire narrative of early hunting. For a long time, the dominant theory suggested that early humans were primarily scavengers, timidly lurking on the edges of a kill made by a more powerful predator, darting in to grab scraps after the lions or saber-toothed cats had their fill. The Schöningen Spears shatter that image completely. They are the smoking gun, the undeniable evidence of systematic, coordinated big game hunting. The spears were found alongside the butchered remains of numerous wild horses, with cut marks on the bones showing where meat was expertly stripped away. This was not a chance encounter, it was a planned communal operation. Successfully hunting a herd of large, fast, and dangerous animals like horses requires an immense amount of foresight and social cooperation. It demands a shared plan, a division of roles, and flawless communication. Some individuals may have acted as drivers, herding the panicked animals toward an ambush point, while others, the skilled throwers, launched their spears in a coordinated volley. This level of strategic thinking implies a sophisticated form of language, a way to discuss tactics and assign roles long before the hunt even began. The creation of the spears themselves is another testament to advanced cognition. The woodworkers had to possess a mental blueprint of the finished weapon. They needed to select the right tree, understand the properties of spruce wood, and then skillfully shape it using only stone tools, all while maintaining that critical aerodynamic balance. This was not a quick 5-minute job. It was a time-consuming process that required patience, skill, and an intuitive grasp of physics. The existence of these spears proves that complex technological prowess, far from being a recent Homo sapiens innovation, was a deeply ancient trait. Homo heidelbergensis was not a stumbling brute, but a formidable predator, a strategic thinker, and a skilled craftsman. They possessed the cognitive ability to plan for a future need, to work together as a cohesive team, and to transform a raw material from the forest into a precise, long-range hunting weapon. This discovery forever elevates our ancient cousins from scavengers to masters of their environment, hunting with a coordinated intelligence that echoes across 300 millennia. On a small, windswept island in the heart of the Mediterranean, the human impulse to build the impossible found one of its earliest and most mysterious expressions. The megalithic temples of Monte, structures like G with above Gantija and Haga Kim, rise from the landscape as colossal puzzles carved from Globigerina limestone. They are the oldest freestanding stone buildings in the world, constructed over 5,500 years ago, a full millennium before the Great Pyramid of Giza was even a concept, and 1,000 years before the first stones of Stonehenge were raised. This was the work of a Neolithic farming society, people who had no metal tools, no wheels, and no written language, yet they moved and stacked stones weighing many tons with breathtaking precision. The very existence of these temples shatters the long-held assumption that monumental architecture requires a king, an army of slaves, or a vast, centralized state. Here, on an isolated island with limited resources, a small community achieved a feat of engineering that would impress any modern builder. How did they do it? The answer lies not in coercion, but in cooperation. The construction of a single temple would have demanded the coordinated labor of the entire community for generations, a shared project that required planners, quarry workers, haulers, and master masons. This level of organization implies a complex social structure, one capable of managing long-term projects and distributing resources, all without the whip of a pharaoh. The temples themselves are architectural marvels. They are not simple piles of rock, but sophisticated complexes of curved walls and soaring altars, built using a cloverleaf design of interconnected, oval chambers. The builders employed advanced techniques, carving intricate spiral patterns into the stone and creating pitted holes, perhaps for libations, with stone balls. They fitted massive stone slabs together so perfectly that they have withstood 5 millennia of wind and weather. But what drove them to such an immense effort? The temples are steeped in symbolism, overwhelmingly linked to themes of life, death, and fertility. Inside, archaeologists have found countless statues of corpulent, sleeping figures, often interpreted as mother goddesses or symbols of abundance. Altars are carved with plant motifs and spirals that may represent eternity or the cycle of life. Many of the structures are also precisely aligned with the sun and stars. At Haga Kim, a special stone slab is positioned so that during the summer solstice, the rising sun's rays pierce through a small opening and project a beam of light into the dark inner sanctum, illuminating a specific stone altar. This was not just a place of worship, it was a celestial calendar, a stone computer that marked the passing of the seasons and the promise of the harvest. The temples of Malta stand as a permanent challenge to our materialist view of history. They prove that the deepest human motivations are not always practical or economic. A shared belief system, a powerful, unifying spirituality, can mobilize people to achieve the impossible. It was this collective faith, this drive to create a permanent home for their gods and their community's identity, that allowed a small island society to build for eternity, leaving behind a silent, stone testament to the power of a shared dream. This grand tapestry of evidence reveals a world far more connected than we ever dared to believe. Each of these 25 discoveries is a single thread, but when woven together, they form a picture of a deeply intertwined human story. The genetic legacy of the Denisovans, still alive in people today, proves that ancient populations met and mingled. The shared artistic language of the Venus figurines, found from the Atlantic coast to the heart of Siberia, shows that ideas flowed across continents. The control of fire in a Chinese cave, the maritime technology of a simple Dutch canoe, and the ritual burials from the pit of bones in Spain to the lavish graves at Sungir in Russia, all speak to a common human drive for innovation, meaning, and connection. This was not a planet of isolated tribes, but a vast prehistoric network. The old model of human evolution as a single, straight line is shattered. It was never a simple ladder of progress. Instead, our history is a sprawling, tangled web of migrations, chance encounters, and cultural exchanges. Different human species met and hybridized, exchanging not just genes but technologies and beliefs. Hunter-gatherers in Turkey built a temple complex that predates cities, while their contemporaries in Serbia carved river spirits from stone. Early humans in Germany engineered perfect hunting spears, while others in South Africa performed funerary rites deep within a cave system. What these connections ultimately reveal is the core recipe for our species' success. Our greatest strength was never raw power or isolated genius, but our profound adaptability, our relentless creativity, and our innate social nature. We are who we are because we have always been a species of explorers and storytellers, of innovators and caregivers, forever reaching out across rivers, continents, and even genetic divides to share, to learn, and to build a world together. Our journey through these 25 discoveries reveals a humbling and exhilarating truth. The story of early humans is infinitely more rich, complex, and surprising than we ever dreamed. From the purposeful stride captured at Olduvai Gorge to the celestial temples of Monte, each find has chipped away at a century of outdated assumptions. We no longer see grunting brutes stumbling toward civilization. Instead, we find explorers charting unknown continents, artists giving form to the spirit world, and engineers mastering fire and physics. They were deeply social beings, capable of the profound compassion shown at Shanidar cave and the shared ambition that built Göbekli Tepe. These discoveries collectively teach us that being human is not defined by a single trait, like a large brain or a specific tool. It is defined by a constellation of fundamental behaviors, a deep-seated curiosity about the world, an innate drive for cooperation within a community, and a boundless creativity that expresses itself in art, ritual, and innovation. These are not recent inventions. They have deep roots in our evolutionary past, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. As new technologies allow us to read the genetic stories in a fleck of bone or peer into sealed chambers with laser scanners, one thing is certain. The puzzle of our origins is far from complete. The ground beneath our feet still holds secrets, and the next discovery, waiting in some forgotten cave or buried beneath a city, could change everything.